And we are live on Discovery Paranormal coming at you from the universe. That's right, the universe, man. So this is the deal. God, right? It's a little word with a big meaning. A lot of people put a lot of belief into that word. And then inside that belief, they power whatever kind of crazy thoughts they have or not. When I meet someone who's abjectly religious, I automatically know what I'm dealing with. And it may sound like a blanket statement, but my statement is more of obedience. I know that they are obedient. I know that they are not free thinkers. I know that they don't have a thirst for knowledge or to grab at the depths of even things like science to understand more about what they think they worship. And I'll just leave that there right this second. I'm going to link what people believe God is and the universe and the paranormal and everything science all together tonight. And you're going to be mystified and amazed at what we find during this show. So, what God, quantum physics, and your consciousness all have in common, right? And I like this article I want to read from, but I'm going to adjust it because this is what I do. And Scientific American is one of the only publications. There's only a few publications I can really stomach. You know the ones I like? The ones that don't blast you with advertisers. There's nothing worse than looking at a website and scrolling down an article and then bang, 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 and these ads pop up and they're cruising around, they're moving, they're like little movies going on. Little, yeah. I don't want any part of that. I'm not going to buy your crap. And if you annoy me, I'm definitely not going to buy your crap. If I'm really annoyed, I'm not going to read the article. I'm going to go. So they actually hurt the advertisers by doing that. So just to let people know that I don't like it. So anyway. Okay. Let's see. Let me move on because a lot of these guys also write like it's a novel instead of an article. They they wrote a novel they can't sell, and then they become like a journalist, and then try to put everything in there. And, me personally, like when I was writing for Good Times on Long Island, the entertainment publication I used to write for, it was more about the journey and then the show and then what happened and then what happened thereafter. And then people who live their normal lives can live vicariously through my antics. It was like that. All right. Now, some people confuse agnosticism, which really means not knowing, with apathy, which means not caring, right? So, Francis Collins, a geneticist who directs the National Institutes of Health, he is a devout Christian who believes that Jesus performed miracles, died for our sins, and rose from the dead. Now, think about all these things in terms of movies. That's some zombie thing right there going on. Died for our sins, whatever. But belief is a very powerful thing, right? Very powerful. And once someone's pitched this sales and they buy it, then they're kind of stuck because then the group of people around them that they join also encourage it. And it's like joining a cult. They're all cults because if you really believe in God, you would believe that God would never want you to be part of some kind of religious sect. Just want you to live with the rules of kindness and love. It's not too hard to think about that in this world. How can I approach this with love? How can I approach this with kindness? Or how can I be just in my behavior, right? That type of thing. Anyway, so in his 2006 bestseller, The Language of God, Collins calls agnosticism a cop-out. When I interviewed him, this guy writing, I told him that an agnostic was objected to cop out. Collins apologized. He said, no, he's an agnostic, so he objects. He's offended. That was a put down that should not apply to earnest agnostics who have considered the evidence and still don't find an answer. He said, I was reacting to the agnosticism I see in the scientific community, which has not been arrived at by a careful examination of the evidence. I have examined the evidence for Christianity, and I find it convincing. I'm not convinced by any scientific creation stories either, such as those that depict our cosmos as a bubble in an oceanic multiverse. And so, this is the deal. For a long time, scientists turned their back on religion. But this is my problem. It's not the religion, right? It's the organized religion and the structure that causes people to turn their backs. But if you listen to those stories, all these stories on how we came about to be on this planet, all those stories are based in truth. It just depends on people's interpretation of the timely events and how they wrote things down and whatever. But these documents were left there for a reason. Right. Then people use those stories to shift and shape it into the power and control. Then comes the contradiction, because the Bible and those stories basically had to do with you doing the right thing, a lot of love, caring for your neighbor, all that other stuff. But the organized religion took it and they twisted it and they made it into a power structure of controlling you, controlling your money. They're not preaching spirit. They're preaching flesh. And when you go in there, they take that money. They want 20% of your income, 10, 20%. The Catholic Church expects that type of thing. They put the collection plate around. You're sitting next to people in the church that you belong to. They see what you put in that plate, and they make it very obvious because they want you to feel shame if you don't put enough in, everything you can, so you can impress the person next to you that, you are convinced of their God, and then you're supporting the structure. God doesn't need your money. Anybody ever tell you that? Doesn't need it, doesn't want it, has nothing to do. In fact, money corrupts on the worst level you've ever seen. Money makes people suffer. Lack of money makes people suffer. Try not paying your bills, see where you end up, make people suffer. They don't talk about that. Those churches are more than happy to take your last dollar, and then they won't even shed a tear about it, nothing, right? So my dentist is a holy roller. His wife is there in the lobby, right? And I have to shift and get away from these people because they're nasty and they don't treat me right. And they're just my mom went in there and she had prepaid for a crown, right, and all that. And the guy didn't even have it made yet. And then her oncologist told her that because she was on the cancer treatments, it was not a good time to have this work done. So she held off, and she died. And do you know that these people said, we can't refund all of her money, we'll refund half of her money. I'm like, well, what did you do? What kind of work did you do to justify that $750 that you're keeping? What kind of work did you do on that? Oh, we didn't have the crown made because she had to come in and be so you did nothing. And you're basically screwing someone who died and keeping half their money. And then these people the woman's always passing out religious stuff, Christian this, Jesus this. And I told them, you're very unchristian-like. And that's something that stabs them right through their black heart, because it strikes at the core of what they believe in. The icon of Jesus strikes at the core. But when they're horrible people, you have to let them know that they're horrible people. You just can't walk along and be like, okay, so it's just, that's what gets me, I'm kind of on a crusade now of all the people that have wronged everybody else. If I could throw bolts of lightning, I certainly would. So, all right. Let's see. Let me get back to this again. So, when it comes to theories about ultimate reality, you have to kind of search out, right? Voltaire, Doubt, he said, doubt is not a pleasant condition. It's not. You want to know. And then that's the thing with religion. It's the story. And that's why people use the word belief, because there's no tangible proof to say, okay, here it is right in front of you. This is this, this is that. And you make your own decisions, right? Based on facts and what you see in front of you. It's not just some story, but they want you to believe the story because they don't have any facts to back it up, and they want you to believe in the story. And look how inconsistent the story is from back whence till now. And they don't want to talk about that. Whenever I talk to a preacher, I love talking about these things, and they usually run away from me. They get it, they just get away from me, make any kind of excuse. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. It's all right. I'll follow you in there. Got to talk about it, man. No better place to talk about religion than the bathroom, is there? So it's just funny that they can't back up what they say. Or all you have to do is ask them some simple questions about, why people suffer so much on this planet, and what kind of God would sit there and watch people suffer like they do. Well, you get strength from suffering or whatever. Yeah, kiss my ass. No, you don't. You get strength from love and from the connection with people, the people around you that show you that kindness and love, and a simple act of kindness that you do for someone else can energize you way more than any kind of trip to a church. But they take that away from people. They take people away from their neighbors. Yeah, that Jew, the Muslim, and the Christian living all next to each other. The definition of their religion separates them from one another. And then you have the people saying, well, it's all written on the same page and we're all together in this, but we're not. And they know that we're not. It's just something that they say. They're not following the belief of their religion. What they're doing is paying into just some kind of fallacy, that they're going beyond. Like, I know a Muslim who smokes weed and drinks alcohol, and he's like, ha, 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 I'm not a good Muslim. I'm like, no, you're not a Muslim. Their very religion, it preaches against that stuff. You would not go anywhere near it if you observe their religion. So people want to kind of label themselves and think what they are, but they don't really know what they're talking about and have gone in depth. But this show is about bringing these, and if you've seen Ancient Aliens, maybe, and whatever, all of these Bible stories can coincide very easily with technology. In fact, the technology is becoming real and tangible for us to witness, and the beliefs of these stories going to the wayside. Churches all over, synagogues, all these temples are in a panic because people are becoming smarter, and they're questioning these beliefs. They're questioning this blind faith, and they want to know why they pray so hard, but they keep getting screwed. Or, the word prayer, I don't even pray anymore. I gave that. It's ridiculous now. Prayer, hoping for things. Hope is bull crap. I have faith, but I have faith in myself and the things that I can do. And I know if I ask for something from the universe, it delivers it to me because I'm asking something that I can use so I can have a driven purpose doing the thing that I need to do. Right? But it's not sitting there praying for money to fall from the sky or, whatever, because everybody's got problems, man. People have problems. Much of people have problems because of religion. Do you know if all religious institutes in the United States of America actually paid property taxes? You know how much less taxes you'd have to pay, even though the government will still take your money anyway. And there's no saving grace with that. They're like crackheads that just keep taking more and more. They smoke it up, and they would need more and more. But what do they do? What do they do? What do they accomplish when they do this? What do they do with all our money? You see it go out the window. You see it be used for all kinds of things, probably things you don't even agree with, certainly, but they do it, and they do it without representing why or what. That's something you need to know, because that's the true religion for a lot of these people, especially religious people, especially the Pope, is money, money, money. They pray to money, and without it, they don't have any power. So money is power, right? So, but certainly, with Voltaire, with anybody, and I love these old philosophers, man, especially going way back, because they had a real good glimpse of life and they kind of wrote about it. And nothing's changed since then. And now there's more people. There's a lot of suffering. You know, you see how hospitals make a buck off people. You see how, and the lies they tell and the terrible things that they do. And not all of them, but a lot of them, yeah. And it's not the individuals; it's the machine. It's the machine. So, but doubt protects us from dogmatism, right? So, and that can easily morph into fanaticism. So it when people get that, it's like COVID-19. I don't believe no COVID-19, right? Okay, but it's out there and it's killing people. 5 cops in Florida just died this last week. Young police officers, unvaccinated, dead from COVID-19, dead. Right? I don't believe those numbers. They're lying. They're lying. That's another thing people say when they really can't truly, when you give them information right in front of their face and they still can't wrap their heads around it, they just say you're lying. It's a lie. It's or I love the one saying, "Oh, you get the vaccine, they're going to track you." The NSA going to track you with the vaccine, right? Have you heard that one? I actually hear that one a lot. So my answer to them when they say something so asinine and stupid is not to say that they're asinine and stupid or smack them in the head. I say, do you really think that the National Security Agency has the time to track every idiot that's out there and what they do? I mean, yeah, no, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. There's no reason to. They don't need to track you. And most of these people that are spouting all this stuff, the anti-vaxxers, they don't believe in this and believe in that. They don't believe in anything. They believe whatever these politicians that they follow tell them, or the ones on the certain media channels tell them is what they believe is their belief. Forget belief. Don't believe. Just do. And understand, do your research, know what you're talking about. Don't give your right of choice to some idiot who knows not what they talk about. And by the way, when Trump said he didn't believe in the vaccine or the virus, it was a Democratic hoax, he got vaccinated fast enough when there was available. So did his whole family. They got vaccinated fast enough. So the anti-vaxxers are going against their own mighty Trump by not getting vaccinated. And then also you see people working nursing homes and whatever. They don't want to get vaccinated. The police officers are fire. They don't want to get vaccinated. Yeah. But you're encountering the public. And if you have the virus, you can infect someone else. You have your rights, but you don't have the right to make somebody else sick. So anyway, but that brings us to evil. Why do we exist? People say, "Oh, why do we exist? Why do we exist?" Right? Now, the answer, according to the major monotheistic religions, including the Catholic faith, in which my mom was raised, and those nuns were mean to her. She was quiet in class. They used to hit her with yardsticks. They're terrible people. The ones that were there. Think about it. They're oppressed. Look how many of these priests they just found on Grindr, the Catholic priests. And the Pope is up in arms about Grindr. He was like, "Why didn't someone tell me about Grindr?" And it's better that they're out doing other guys and then grabbing children. So, but it's the archaic religion. You're not allowed to have sex, but you're born. God, if you believe in God, you were born with sexual organs, so you're supposed to oppress that to serve some religion? That doesn't make any sense. Other religions, those people can have sex. So, but because of that, you got years and years and years of unbelievable abuse against children and others. So, and that was tolerated, still tolerated to this day. What kind of an organization would tolerate harboring pedophiles? You tell me. I read these stories sometimes in the news like I just read one today. This guy abducted this 8-year-old girl from her driveway and raped her in her own house, like picked her up, carried her in there and raped her, and then the family caught him, whatever. Yeah, he's going to go to jail for life, maybe. They charged him with a boatload of felonies, right? But what's the difference between that guy and these priests? Well, because the priest belonged to the Catholic Church, that makes it better or something? It doesn't. But we don't see a lot of them going to jail lately, do we? Even though they're out there, So that's just something that I think about, because people get so outraged when they see the story of the guy raping the 8-year-old girl. But these are Catholics I know get outraged, and I love rubbing poop right in their face when they say something like that. And I say, well, what about your church? Why don't you show the same kind of outrage for those demons that are in there? The whole organization has nothing to do with kindness and love and a loving God. It's the opposite. It's the opposite, right? Look what they do. So that's all I'm saying. Open your eyes and look. Don't listen to what they tell you or their interpretation of whatever. Look for yourself, right? So anyway, if in religion you think that there's an all-powerful supernatural entity created all people, all animals, all plants, all everything, this deity loves us automatically as a human father loves his children, right? Or a mother loves her children and wants us to behave in a certain way. So if you're good, God will reward you. If you're bad, God will punish you, right? But it's just interesting that inside of all the doom and gloom and punishment of so-called going to hell and all this other stuff, they can actually say, but God loves you. So, but really, it's the problem of evil in the world, right? And I've seen all these religions vilify the things that they fear the most, which really has nothing to do with the fear of Satan or anything like that. It's more about what they're personally going to lose in their flesh and bone life. It's not even about their spirit. I think that most people in religion don't even believe, like the higher ups, the ones who are preaching, don't even believe in what they talk about. Because to them it's a job. You know what I mean? So, okay, if God does love us, though, why is life so horrific for many people? I just said that before, man. And the standard response to this question is God gave us free will. We can choose to be bad as well as be good. So what about all those little children in Africa who are drinking mud water and eating rats? Was that their choice? What about the kids being born with cancer and they suffer and they die, or anybody with cancer, anybody with any kind of thing like that? Oh, is that their choice? They choose to get cancer? Is that the free will of mankind? Or is it the free will of mankind to enslave others and keep them down, beat them and rape them and kill them? Is that it? This is why I say to preachers. This is why you should have seen the Mormons run past my house. They they knocked on my door once, and I gave them some knowledge. I educated them for that time, maybe an hour. These guys broke into a sweat. It was the fall, and there was skinny little guys. They both broke into a sweat. Looked like they came out of a sweat bath, a sweat lodge. But they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're preaching. They're going door to door, peddling their nonsense and telling people about their crapola. Because they need numbers, they need people, and they need their money, and they need those bodies sitting in those chairs. They need the gang, don't they? They need the power. So, the late great physicist Steven Weinberg, an atheist who died in July, slaps down the free will argument in his book Dreams of the Final Theory. Noting that Nazis killed many of his relatives in the Holocaust, Weinberg asks, did millions of Jews have to die so the Nazis could exercise their free will? That doesn't seem fair, though, does it? And what about the kids who get cancer? I just mentioned that. Yeah? Are we supposed to think the cancer cells have free will? On the other hand, life isn't always hellish. We experience love, friendship, adventure, and heartbreaking beauty, plus really good cheesecake, man. Could all this reality come crashing in from random collisions of particles? Even Weinberg concedes that life sometimes seems more beautiful than strictly necessary. If the problem of evil prevents me from believing in a loving God, then the problem of beauty keeps me from being an atheist. So think about that. The problem with information. Now, Quantum mechanics is science's most precise, powerful reality, right? It's not even a theory anymore because they're working in quantum mechanics, they're working in quantum physics. It has predicted countless experiments, spawned countless applications. The trouble is, physics and philosophers disagree over what it means and that what it says about how the world works. Many physicists most probably adhere to the Copenhagen interpretation, advanced by Danish physicist Niels Bohr. But that is a kind of anti-interpretation, which says physicists should not try to make sense of quantum mechanics. They should shut up and calculate. See, and that's the thing about quantum mechanics. It's a world that works opposite of our own. There are things that happen in quantum mechanics that don't happen in our macro level of physics, right? So, philosopher Tim Malden deplores this situation in his 2019 book, Philosophy of Physics, Quantum Theory. He points out that several interpretations of quantum mechanics describe in detail how the world works. These include the GRW model proposed by Girardi, Rimini, and Weber. I've talked about that not that long ago. The pilot wave theory of David Bohm and many worlds hypothesis of Hugh Everett. But Hugh, Hugh, not huge. But here's the irony. Malden is so scrupulous in pointing out that the flaws of these interpretations that he reinforces people's skepticism. They all seem hopelessly kludgy and preposterous. Malden does not examine interpretations that recast quantum mechanics as theory about information. For positive perspectives on information-based interpretations, you can check out Beyond Weird, another book by Philip Ball. So basically, people take their sides. One side, another side. Sometimes there are even more sides, but usually there's two. If one human is into something, the other human is going to tell them why it's wrong, and vice versa. So what I really want to get into, though, is more than this claptrap, right? More than claptrap. So this is interesting to me because it proves a point in science, and especially as people think outside the box as scientists and what they're looking for and searching for. That's what brings it all together. Is there a God, an old man up there sitting, pushing buttons, looking down on us? No, it doesn't even plausible. But is there an energy that creates and recreates and moves things around? Yes. And it goes even deeper than that, right? So how's this? Brains might sync as people interact, and that could upend consciousness research. This is whole new, and see, we've talked about this on our show. We've talked about what is reality and how our minds make the reality around us, right? So when we cooperate together with other humans and animals too, by the way, on certain tasks, our brain waves synchronize. This finding could upend the current understanding of consciousness and much of the things that we think about in people's individuality. So people synchronize in various ways when we interact with one another. We subconsciously match our footsteps when we walk. During conversations, we mirror each other's postures and gestures. To that end, studies have shown that people synchronize heart rates and breathing when watching emotional films together. So, here you are having an event, and then you're the person next to you, you're pacing yourself with them unconsciously. How do you do that? You don't know how their heart's beating. You don't know. I mean, especially if you're watching something and they're watching something, you would think you get something different out of it, right? Like horror movies. I'm usually laughing at the horror movies or rooting for the bad guys, because it makes it interesting. I just think that they're more the underdog. And people love underdogs. Common people, the common man loves the underdog, man. You want people to do well. You want people to get on top. especially good people. It's nice to see somebody good. You know what? Will Smith is an example of that, the actor. This guy came from nothing and he became something. And he went through his trials and tribulations, but this dude, his heart is full of love. And anybody who has interacted with him has beautiful things to say about him, man. That's something I can appreciate. And I'm glad that he made it. So, okay, so, and also, don't forget about women's periods. When a lot of women are hanging out, their period, their cycle all gets on the same the same calendar stroke. So, okay, some scientists think we sync to build trust and perceive people as similar to ourselves, which encourages us to behave compassionately, right? So, do you think something like that could be used by a religion, by somebody who's unscrupulous, by somebody who understands this? And it's a beyond. It's a great bit of communication, but it's beyond that, really. And if you manipulate something like that, just like in neurological linguistic programming, on understanding people, their emotions, and the things that they're feeling at the time, just by listening to their words and watching their actions and syncing yourself to that. So subconsciously, they don't understand what you're doing on purpose, but you're syncing with them on purpose. So they are more relaxed and they have more trust for you, and then they have a better identity. They identify with you better, right? But anyway. So the people synchronize their neural rhythms too, though. So researchers like Tom Frost, a cognitive scientist from Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology in Japan, think that these findings could upend our current models of consciousness. So you may have experimented this while playing music with someone and falling into rhythmic melodic harmony, or you may collectively have solved a problem with a team. Perhaps it felt like you were operating the same frequency. In reality, this might not have been far from the truth. Such interbrain neural synchronization has been observed in people engaging in meaningful interactions. But what does it actually mean? All right. Our brains are made up of billions of neurons. When they fire, sending information to nearby neurons, they give off electrical signals. Billions of neurons fire to carry out specific cognitive tasks, like producing thoughts or controlling the body's movement. And if you know the brain and how amazing the brain really is, you know that it's just not some kind of natural occurring creation. It's too involved, too intricate. I mean, aside from the species who are alive on this planet, look at everything else, and especially when it comes to all creatures, you know, that we share that ACTG in our DNA. I mean, if you just have your ACTG, right, and you had a machine that could take those 4 bits and you could create whatever you want. You have these long strands of DNA, chromosomes, things like that, long strands. And it's so intricate that even the things that we eat and the foods, your brain knows what to do with it and how to, feed your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your brain, and what they exactly need from these chromosomes. It's amazing. It's amazing when you get into it. It's just not something a million years, 5 million, 10 million years of development. Come on, man. This is recent and this is technical. So anyway, now these collective electrical signs can be aligned to certain frequencies, much like waves, where the peak represents a spike in neural activity and a dip represents the low neural activity, right? Cognitive tasks often require regions of the brain to speak to one another, allowing information to be transferred and integrated. Some scientists claim that this information transfer occurs when neural frequencies from different brain regions align. This is known as phase synchronization. And I got a better one for you, man. The pineal gland, which we've talked about. So all these neurons, boom, feeding into, here's this pineal gland that many believe, we call it the third eye, and we all believe, the people that talk about it anyway, that know about it, that you can communicate with other beings. It's telepathic communication with animals too, since they have a pineal gland. So it was revered by the Egyptians and ancient Chinese and all these civilizations. They knew what it was all about, So, all right. So researchers have observed people's neural activity while they complete cognitive tasks with techniques like the EEG, and go get your heart checked out or whatever, that type of thing. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is a machine that detects when oxygenated blood is flowing to the brain. Functional near infrared spectroscopy, and also detects blood flow in the brain. With these techniques, scientists have peered into people's minds as they complete tasks in pairs and groups. They notice something unexpected. Functional links appeared across people's brains when they cooperated during certain tasks. In other words, different people's neural oscillations aligned when they cooperated. This is amazing research because you know what? It's important to know more about yourself. We don't, we're explorers, but we don't know a lot about our human brain. We don't know a lot about how our systems work, even a bit, but not a lot. And especially nature itself. I mean, look how complicated plants are. Look at nature. Look at everything in nature. Look at the water that's out. What makes everything up that we need and use to survive, and people arguing with each other, politics, that too. You know what I mean? So, but why does all this matter? You're asking me, right? What do you care about? As most neuroscientists currently understand, no localized region or network in the brain is solely responsible for our conscious experience. Instead, some researchers believe that the neural basis of consciousness, specifically the first-hand experience of it, comes from large-scale interactions between different brain regions via neural oscillatory activity. So we are getting together with people without even knowing, and then sometimes that's part of your mood, your happiness when you're having fun with a group and you're all having fun. So until there's like that one, there's always one in every crowd that can't have a good time. You know? They don't want to have a good time. They're gonna be, but they're always the same people too. You ever notice that? We used to have a whole bunch of people that came out with us, back in the day. And then there was one particular girl in the group that always had to have the drama, always had to have a bad time. It's like that. It's like, oh my God. And then you get to the point, you're like, oh, do we have to take her? Do we have to? Because it becomes a draining experience, Oh, why the hell do you want to if these people can't chill, right? So, but this is even more important. All right. Physicists explain how the brain might connect to the quantum realm. So, with all the things that they're looking for in quantum mechanics, all of this physical equipment, it may have already been created a long time ago within our brains, right? And it's something that we can discover about ourselves. So, one of the most important open questions in science is how our consciousness is established. In the 1990s, long before winning the 2020 Nobel Prize in Physics for his prediction of black holes, physicist Roger Penrose teamed up with anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff to propose an ambitious answer, right? What do you think that answer is, man? They claimed that the brain's neuronal system forms an intricate network that the consciousness this produces should obey the rules of quantum. Should the theory that determines how tiny particles like electrons move around, this, they argue, could explain the mysterious complexity of the human consciousness. So they're linking everything human with you, with being connected with everything else at the same time. So the philosopher Lao Tzu, right, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, basically, or you could say he dictated the Tao Te Ching, but it's a book of poems, 81 poems, basically describing about the ancient masters and how people learn to do their thing, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and all that, right? So it's all in nature. They say the 10,000 things rise and fall while the self watches, right? All of these things happen at once. In the word Tao means threshold. Literally, you are in the doorway of life, the threshold. Death is going home, and life is having to leave home. And while you're in this threshold, you are riding the wave of light. So there's a lot to these words. There's a lot of meaning behind them, right? And things were much more simple back then. They actually had more time to think about stuff because there wasn't a lot to do. You got your garden, you got your food, you got your house, you got maybe your girl, your kids, or whatever. So anyway, all right. Penrose and Hammeroff were met with incredulity. A lot of people didn't believe it. They're like, huh, and that's when you know you're on track. When people get incredulous with you, they're like, ah. Quantum mechanical laws are usually only found to apply at very low temperatures. Quantum computers, for example, currently operate at around 272 centigrade below zero. Wow. Well, below centigrade. Negative 272. How's that, you scientists out there? At higher temperatures, classical mechanics take over. Since our body works at room temperature, you would expect it to be governed by the classical laws of physics. For this reason, the quantum consciousness theory has been dismissed outright by many scientists, though others are persuaded supporters. So instead of entering into a debate, you have to understand with, I like this, they start quoting their colleagues from China, led by Professor Zi Minjin at Shanghai Jiaotong University, to test some of the principles underpinning quantum theory consciousness. So they wrote a paper, in the new paper, they investigated how quantum particles could move in a complex structured brain, but in a lab setting, their findings can one day be compared with activity measured in the brain. So they are getting steps closer to validating and or dismissing Penrose and Hammerhoff's controversial theory. So the brain and fractals. So our brains are composed of cells called neurons, which we already talked about, and their combined activity is believed to generate your consciousness, right? And it's interesting because when you die, even keeping the brain active, you're not active, right? And then all these people who work in hospice cares see this, not all of them, but many of them, when someone dies, they see this amazing energy rise out of them and go up. You know, what is that? And they're not making that up. Maybe some of them are, but not all of them. I know people that have witnessed it that I wholeheartedly believe when they tell me these stories. So now each neuron contains microtubules, which transport substances to different parts of the cell. The Penrose-Hameroff theory of quantum consciousness argues that microtubules are structured in a fractal pattern, which would enable quantum processes to occur. Now, fractals are structures that are neither two-dimensional nor three-dimensional, but are instead some fractional value in between, which call them fractals. In mathematics, fractals emerge as beautiful patterns that repeat themselves with infinity, right? Generating what seems to be the impossible, a structure that has a finite area but an infinite perimeter. So what this means. We're finding out more every day. And we do have scientists who are reaching out to one another, and they're going forward with this type of research, and they're linking the universe, in martial arts, and in Taoism, we refer to this universal energy as the dragon's veins, and even if you're at your lowest or if you're at your most depressed, or if you physically feel like you can't even move and get up, you tap the dragon's veins and it gives you this unbelievable source of energy. So these things have been talked about for thousands of years. These things have been observed for thousands of years. People have used these things for thousands of years. People are connected. Why do you think, when you have, how many cases of twins do you have out there where one of them gets hurt, the other one feels it, or, they're in different places and something happens to one, so the other one knows it, same thing for psychics, same thing for mediums. What do you think this ability is? It wasn't just something that was zapped into their head. It's an ability. It's an intuitive ability, and I describe it as different levels of sensitivity and what you understand, right? And yeah, you're going to have your psychics out there and mediums that lie and say that they are, but they're really not. And they get sussed out eventually. They even write books. They're out there writing books. They're on different shows and talking about these amazing things they've done. It's all a bunch of bull crap. So you suss them out. But this goes beyond all of that, beyond the charlatans and beyond the gypsies. No offense to any gypsies out there. They're actually gypsies. So let's just say, all right, let me go. It's easy to see why fractals have been used to explain the complexity of human consciousness because they're infinitely intricate. So if you have something like pi that is incalculable, it goes on forever, don't you think that's a pathway to something? No other number does that. Don't you think that's something that can reach out? And especially if you look at the Great Pyramids and how those blocks are all pi. They're all pi r square. Why do you think? And Nikola Tesla was fascinated with those pyramids. He's also fascinated with 3, 6, 9, and 12, right? Or anything in multiples of threes. Like he was obsessed with it. He would even walk around a building 3 times before he went into the building. There's a little OCD going on there, That's why he was such a great scientist, because he sunk his teeth into things, So we're not able to measure the behavior of quantum fractals at this point, but the advanced technology means that they can now measure quantum fractals in the lab. So this is all crawling before we can walk. But what do you think at some point, and we got to end the show in a minute, but what do you think that you want to understand about the universe? What do you think you need to know about the universe? Much of it, it's a need to know information. If you stand back and look at things, you see really how constricted people are. They talk about free will. And on the earth, free will has a lot to do with how much money you have in the bank, because there are people who are poor who don't really have much free will. So all that religious bunk about free will and all that, when I talk to friends from other countries that are not first world countries, if there is such a thing anymore, they ask me about America and what the deal is. And I said, you know what? At least people here can basically make their own choices. And that's the essence of freedom for me. Make your own choices, not being told what to do. That's the most important. But they have to be educated choices, educated decisions, And we don't see a lot of intelligence out there anymore. We see a lot of people just kind of going for the easier path and not have to think so hard. So they're just going to go listen to other people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. Yeah, that's life sometimes, isn't it? So when we look at quantum physics and how these particles and how these things function, and every day as we get closer and closer, we're getting closer to doorways. We're getting closer to understanding more about ourselves and about each other. And as soon as people realize that we're not so far from each other, that we're actually all interconnected, because in Lao Tzu's view, in the world of Taoism, all things are connected, everything. And then things evolve together as coevolution, right? But all things connected. So as you think about that, and you think about that kindness and that love, and going out there and spreading, instead of being angry or hate or being depressed or whatever, you got to just climb above it. I know it can be hard to do. I've been there myself, but you climb above it and you reach for higher levels. That's what the most important thing is, to attain those higher levels for yourself. Like the Buddha said, we're all on our own mission, right? So anyway, I'll leave you guys with that thought. This is Michael Angley on Discovery Paranormal. I'll see you guys next week on this show on United Public Radio Network, UPRNTalkRadio.com, 107.5 New Orleans and 104.7 in Paris Christian. That's amore, that's amore. Oh,